Hello, this is Vivian. Today is June the 26th. It's a Thursday, and this is my reflection number 3. And I decided to select the recording presented by Zaid Ali Al-Sagaf on June the 2nd of this year, entitled MM4 DNA of a 21st Century Educator. And so what I'm going to do is put this on my blog, which is basically in its infancy, which is over here. And I found an image which I thought would work really well, and a quote by Deepak Chopra: "To change the printout of the body, you must learn to rewrite the software of the mind." And I kind of thought this fit well with the theme of changing the DNA for the 21st century. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my blog, which I haven't done anything with for quite a while. As you can see, it is definitely in its infancy. So I'm going to go into the back office. So I'm going to put this on pause while I do this. So here I am in my my dashboard on my blog. So here is the image, and I'm going to go ahead and include my article, my reflection number 3. I'm going to just put it under this picture, so I'm just going to pause this for a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this content into my blog under the image right here. Just a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and update. And then we'll go ahead and view our post. And scroll down. And here it is. So basically just going over this reflection very briefly. As I said, the title was MM4 DNA of a 21st Century Educator. And this was June the 2nd. I'll fix the title in a minute. But just in the interest of saving time, this presentation focused on what educators of the 21st century need to do to become as effective as they possibly can in a century where the traditional teaching learning paradigm, Bloom's taxonomy, has been replaced with the revised Bloom's taxonomy. And there's such a plethora of information online, all different kinds of, Web 2.0 tools available to educators and students alike, and so that the definition of both teacher and learner is undergoing a transformation. I just made a note here. I was not able to attend the live presentation, unfortunately, due to a conflict in scheduling. So these are some of the questions that came up, and I'll probably boldface this to make it stand out. I realized that I would have a lot to learn and wondered how long it would take and how to filter through the abundance of information to find the right tool chest for myself. In other words, I would have to adjust my DNA. This brings up the topic of learning styles, which a presenter also talked about. It's true, we all have our own approach to learning, but in the so-called real world, all of us need to adjust our approach to learning so that we do indeed learn. We don't want it to be boring. We need to stimulate other areas of our brain that we tend not to use as much as we could. So for instance, if your learning style is more tactile and perhaps, using games, role-playing, that kind of thing, that's great in certain situations, but you can't use that all the time. It may not necessarily be appropriate. The presenter also talked about how men's and women's brains operate differently, and this brought to mind a humorous but succinct presentation I recently viewed on YouTube, and which I've included here. So there's the link, and I'll go back and activate that. How did the content relate to you as a teacher and or learner or individual? And the presenter defined the DNA of a 21st century educator as containing the following: competencies, passion, behavior, empathy, habits, knowledge, creativity, fun, inspire, skills, style, drive, and attitude, which caused me to take a critical look inward at myself and question how I would rate myself under each of these assets. In my subjective assessment, I knew that I certainly have these qualities, but how well am I able to relay these to my learners? The list is long and should not be taken lightly if an educator is serious about making a difference when teaching. Some of the thoughts that went through my head during this presentation is that I realized I am a true newbie regarding online education, and to be of best service to my students, I need to develop a tool chest of tools. I also realized that since the emergence of the internet, students are wired differently than those from the pre-internet days, which I remember well. The basic needs are the same, but the manner in which learning takes place has been transformed, and so teachers too need to transform. At the outset, the attendees were asked what they felt was the top priority from this list that an educator should focus on, and passion was the first reply, followed by all of the others from the list. At the end of the presentation, passion was still placed as a top priority, because without it, no matter how skilled or expert the educator, instruction that is not infused with passion will definitely be boring. Some of the feelings that I experienced as I watched this presentation was inspiration, lots of opportunities to create dynamic content, learning about these many tools such as Blackboard Collaborate for collaboration and survey everywhere I didn't know about. So there is a plethora of information that is a bit daunting, and I'm not sure what would work for me and what wouldn't. So I feel a little bit like a kid in a candy shop who wants to try every flavor available for testing. I want to sign up for every account and learn about them all at once. But of course, as the saying goes, you can't eat an elephant. And of course, too much candy will give me a serious bellyache. But there's also a sense of gratitude that I feel, since I have the opportunity to learn technology that did not exist when I was a graduate student. I feel as if I'm coming from the fossil age, and believe me, I'm not a fossil. I'm referring to the age of fossil fuels, to the solar age, the age of solar energy, and it reminds me of a famous science fiction novel. This transition is one I want to experience. So just kind of scrolling down here a little bit, I would hope that I didn't waste my time trying to implement the wrong tools for my teaching needs. And I realized that the help does come by way of forums with other instructors, as well as pre-content building assessments, which is what the presenter emphasized as a top priority. And I would like to feel that I hit the needs of my learner demographic closely enough that the adjustment for the shortcomings would not be very great. The presenter said before one creates a content, one needs to do an assessment of the needs of the student. So my question is, how does one do this if they don't have students yet? How am I assessing them? Would I have to go to some surveys of the students I assume I'll be attracting? The best way to evaluate the tools is to learn how to use them first myself, and again, joining forums and asking other educators who are familiar with the tools themselves what worked for them and what they would recommend. There's a sentence here I need to complete. By consistently taking online tutorials as well as other resources and learning to implement them, I would be creating my own, and I forget what that word was. It was like a resource kit. I forget what the word was. I have to look that up. And based on what I've read, it seems like surveys show quite well what students need in terms of pronunciation improvement. So that would be a resource for me to go to, which I've already done that actually. And then I just wanted to quickly mention, Zaid also pointed out the 5 Minds of the Future by Howard Gardner, which I found very intriguing. And the 5 minds are synthesizing mind, disciplined mind, ethical mind, creating mind, and respectful mind. And he did point out that he felt that disciplined mind should have the first priority, and that is what we should work on first. And it would take about 10 hours of disciplined, intense, practice in order to achieve a level of mastery in the disciplined mind category. And what would I like to do in the future as a result of what I've learned, heard, or seen? I'd like to explore how best to make learning English pronunciation more fun. In the past, I've had great results using jazz chants and feel more drawn to this kind of approach using music. So incorporating music into improving pronunciation is something I would learn how to do more in my online teaching mastery. And then secondly, I like the idea of gamification. I've thought about that often in the past, and I'd like to see how that works online. And then just scrolling down quickly before I run out of time, a question or two about what I'd like to research or look into. How does an educator motivate solo students to interact together with other students online? Would it be a group project? Is it a Facebook group that I would be creating where students would be coming back to? So anyway, here is my very brief presentation going into 11 minutes, and you can read it in its full and corrected form. I'm going to be including the link shortly. And thank you for taking the time out and listening to this.